Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, November 3rd. So let's talk about the price action today first, and then we'll talk about obviously we'll talk a little bit about the election, and then of course tomorrow we have a Fed day too. So things don't get any easier going into tomorrow either. But today, nice 2-day rally. So this was really so. Let me go over the performance first, and then I'll go through my point of view for the day. But Q's finished up 1.7%. Interesting, exactly the same percentage, at least on my spreadsheet, as the SPY, 1.73%. The Dow and IWM in particular rallied pretty nicely today, 2.8%. And bonds sold off a little bit. Should be in maybe a little bit of light red, I would assume. Let's throw that there. The VIX was down for the session, even though there was a little bit of snapback at the end of the day. Sector-wise, some things that were underperformers the last week. I saw retail a couple times on the underperformer list last week. That was up 3.5% for the day. Again, I'm looking at I tend to look at this column, which is percentage, what it does after the open, just to see where the buyers were, right? In the overnight session, obviously, it's a little bit different. XRT did finish up 3.5%, so I think it was amongst one of the best performers. Also, managed care names were very strong today, which I don't have on the list. On this list, I have on another watch list. They were up 3.7%. Managed care names, very strong. And interesting, clean energy was strong again today. The industrials were very strong, up 3%. We're going to go over a couple of those names. Look at the transports. So again, if I sort it this way, it might be a little bit more telling for the day's performance. Because sometimes that kind of skews it a little bit. Yeah, so XRT was the best, but you can see defense and aerospace, transports, industrials, interesting stuff going on in this group, right? So one of the things that I've been saying, and I think it's too early to kind of call that, but I've been saying, hey, let this price action kind of tell you where the new possible leadership might come from. Now, this is just one day, but I do want to look at some of these groups on the charts. So I want to just take a step back for a second and just, with all this, we're being inundated, right, with the election stuff and what's going to happen and, all different types of trades and what this analyst is saying and what that analyst is saying. Really, my view is to trade the price action. We gave a member webinar last night on the market webs, and a couple things that I said yesterday was, hey, we bounced yesterday. Maybe we could bounce, a little bit more, but we're going to have to contend with resistance, right? And what today kind of gave us was some nice tradable setups. You could see some of those areas that I talked about. They did rally past the open, right? Sometimes we come in and the whole move is made in the overnight market, and that's a phenomenon that I talk about quite frequently. That is where the alpha is made. In terms of the majority of the move happens in the overnight market. But there are days like this where there's a little bit more opportunities. Some things will actually move decently throughout the trading session. So we did see that in a number of places. And so you can kind of, as we did today, and I'll show you my trades as always, but there was things to trades. There was things that I put on yesterday that I took off today. And then you don't have to worry about what the outcome of the election is in terms of trading wise. I know everybody has accounts and so forth outside of their trading account, but in terms of that, you had opportunities to kind of sell into today's strength and see where it goes, see what happens tomorrow, and maybe that will give us another trading opportunity. So those are beautiful things. When you get a nice rally into an event, right? You have ample opportunity to make your moves and take profits and to not get yourself set up to be, into an event, whether it be the election or whether it be the Fed event tomorrow, right? Because the Fed days are always kind of tricky. All right. So the levels that I'm watching, we did So I'll give you the good and the bad here on this S&P chart. The good is we got over the first hurdle, 3342. What about the short-term trend, which I've been watching? We're kind of right. We're right at the decision point, right? So this, like I said, a really nice, healthy rally the last 2 days, and you like for me, I'm happy with that. I took money and put it in my pocket, right? Cashed out of some things today because I don't know what's going to happen tonight. Nobody does, right? Nobody knows. Everybody has a guess or an opinion, but really nobody knows what's going to happen. There will be some people doing victory laps tomorrow based on some trades that you didn't hear about, or maybe they did publicly say what they were doing. But I don't really have an edge, you know, going into this. Where I do have an edge, I know where my edge is, and that's knowing where to kind of trade things and where a trade setup is, and basically knowing how to kind of position around it, right? And yeah, analyzing the technicals plus flow, plus a little bit of instinct, right? That's kind of mine. But these events like this, there's no edge in trying to predict what's going to happen. A couple things. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting that we stopped here, 3368. This is the level that we went over in last night's webinar, right? So, one of the things a repeat question that I got this week was about, selling premium because the premiums are juiced, right? The options are juiced into this event. So, now they won't, like, if we do get, I would assume, right, and I'm making a little bit of an assumption here, but if we do get a winner tonight, I would think that the premiums will go down. Remember, like normally normally, not always, but it's how the VIX works is into an event, volatility increases, and once the event becomes known, then the volatility comes out, right? So you have to be very careful. We talked about that in the room today in terms of if you're holding options, right? If you're holding options, you have extra risk. Like if let's say that the price doesn't move at all, let's say that there's no reaction in whatever option you're holding, right? You will most likely lose because if the volatility comes down, right? So if the VIX goes down, for example, you'll lose on your option, all things being equal, if the price doesn't move. So that's why it's important. So one of the questions that I got was about selling premium into this event, and where we were yesterday, we were right in the middle of this, right? This value area. So what we said in last night's webinar was wait until you get a move to one side, and then you could try to fade the move that if we're coming into resistance, which we are. So here is the trade idea that I gave, which is valid. I don't know if anybody did this in the room today, but I said if you want to sell premium, we are at the top of value. This was in the morning, and because we did hit this early on in the day. This was 10 o'clock. We didn't really go much, too much further after 10 o'clock. But here was the trade to consider, right? Selling a call spread. And again, it depends on your view. I talked about that in yesterday's webinar too, that I didn't want to sell premium yesterday because I thought we were yet to move, right? When we're in the middle of something, I want to see which way it's going to go first. All right, so I'm spending a lot of time here because the S&P 500, I do look at the market first, and I think these levels are important. And then, of course, I'll look at sectors. So again, it's a top-down approach for me, looking at the overall market, the S&P 500, 500 biggest names, and then looking at sectors, and then of course individual names, which is mostly what I trade is individual names. All right, I don't trade. I basically just use the S&P value areas as a roadmap for the overall market. All right. Now, if we go to the Qs, you're going to see a little bit of a different picture here. That's kind of in a little bit in no man's land right now. Right, we're still below the trend, right? 200 period moving average, and we're in value, right? There's a little bit we will have a little bit of support here, but not really strong. And then the other picture here is small caps. Notice that S&P is right at the top of value, and the Qs are in the middle of the value area for the week, and IWM is doing something different. Now there is a VPOC up here at 161.66, but it's acting a little bit better on the short, on a short-term view. Again, 1 hour chart, it's a short-term view, right? So right now we've got strength in the small caps. So it's kind of similar to what happened back in 2016. Not exactly. Let me bring up the S&P chart, right? And then we'll talk about some sectors which I haven't talked about yet. But here's what it looks like, right? Here's what we look like now versus 2016. It's a little bit different looking. Right? Here's what we did going into the election. We really sold off going into the 2016 election, right? And then we rallied, and we rallied hard. No, and we went sideways for all of September and October, right? And then we started to dip down. So, it's not exactly the same picture. We did dip into this, but also, we were kind of oversold into the last election. We're not necessarily oversold. We're not oversold, right? We've rallied the last 2 days, which has burned off those oversold levels, right? We know that like things like sentiment, like the fear and greed index was sharply into fear territory, but the last 2 days of rally have burned those off. So we already have a different picture. The story there in terms of performers, which I've covered this already in videos this week, were the banks, right? The banks really. Sorry, this is 2000. This is 2020, but the banks were the big outperformer, particularly the regional banks back in 2016, right? They did start to go a little bit. Oh no, they didn't. Sorry. Right. So again, we're kind of seeing this trade being front run a little bit. Notice what the banks had another strong day today, right? So I'm glad, because I kind of talked a lot about this bank trade last week, and it's working to some extent. Now, am I confident that this bank rally is going to continue? No. I want to see what's going to happen. Like this, TLT is leaning to the downside, but we'll see if that changes. We'll see if it changes with the Fed meeting too, right? And here's what I did, right? So if we go to the trades, I got long Morgan Stanley. There was January 50 calls that traded yesterday, which did increase open interest on the tape. So, I took this trade off, right? I'm not being greedy. Where's my final? Yeah, same price. So a nice little winner. Is this a huge, ginormous winner? No, but take the profits and put it in your pocket, because I think it's too much to risk, right? And, I do think, like, my view is a little bit of short-term uncertainty, but I think as long as we do have a winner, there's positive things. There's more positives besides what's going on with COVID. Hopefully there will be a stimulus package, and the Fed is still, not going to increase short-term interest rates, at least from what I can tell, for a while. So these are good things for the market. There may be, if the Democrat candidate does win, there might be a little bit of a headwind because of increase of taxes. So that's going to be a headwind, at some point, whenever that happens. So it won't be all, and I don't think like you can formulate saying, oh, everything is going to be positive, right? I think what you do is you kind of take the approach of looking at all these pieces of the puzzle and saying, does it set up for a more of a risk-on type environment? And I think it's possible, right, for the next couple months. If they talk about, hey, they're going to really iron out this stimulus package, that's going to be a good thing. And we'll see how that goes. But also, we're getting to another point that I've been making is, we're getting to a stronger seasonal period of the year. We've gotten through September and October. Those are your dangerous months from seasonality. We've gotten through them, and, it hasn't been easy the last couple months, but it hasn't been horrible either. So, I think that you just kind of have to be patient. And also, so that's the way I'm leaning. But I will like, if we get rejected here, right, and we start to go below, then yes, I will be, you have to change your mind quickly with what the market is giving you. If my one concern, and I did say this in last night's webinar, if we break, this week's lows, and if we break this, which, these are not far places away, then we do have to worry about this area down here, and that's kind of my concern. So for now, I've really got nothing in terms of direction in terms of the overall market. I think it's good that small caps are leading, but really we've got to get over. I'll give you this level again. We've got to really stay above this 3380 level, or I call it's 3367 to be exact. But that's the bogey to watch for tomorrow, or 3368. Sorry. Let's talk just quickly about sectors. Some of the things that we talked about yesterday worked quite well in yesterday's video. FedEx was up 2.8%. I did not I did not trade FedEx. I didn't trade CSX either, which we may have talked about in yesterday's video. But these rails remember we saw this strength, in the beginning of first half of October. We're seeing it again, right? CSX is almost at all-time highs. And also NSC, which I'm long in my trend account, is also looking, four straight big green bars. That kind of looks like a false breakdown, doesn't it? So really strong. And again, they are showing better leadership right now. Even though things like Amazon came back a little bit, but you tell me, like, what looks healthier to you? This? Right? Or even like a FedEx that's making the turn, or like an Amazon or Facebook, right? These things look like they're kind of in trouble. They're hanging on by that. The Facebook is hanging on by the bottom of value. It was up 1.5%, but that's underperforming the market today. So some other things kind of came alive today. Like APPS, which I got long a small piece last week. Right, so there's pockets, right? This, what is this thing? FTCH, right? This was a nice move yesterday once Alibaba said that they took an investment in this company. So there's pockets of strength in growth, but it just may not be some of these bigger names, and that's something that we'll watch, and we'll watch to see what that changes. But for now, I tried trading DuPont today, but DuPont's got to break 60. We saw some calls in this one, so this one will be on the watch list. Again, I like what's going on here, but I'm not about taking on excess risk, into the rest of this week, because again, it's not just the election; it's Fed Day, which generally. But here's the rest of my trades. Square, I got out. I got a little bit lucky with this one. I kind of pre-positioned, yesterday with PayPal, right at the end of the day. So I view that as being lucky with that one. I did take target number one in DuPont before I got out of that trade. I hedged up my lows calls for January, because they're also at a pivotal point, right? They've got to break 166 and move on into the value area. So for now, I took advantage of the bounce because I want to stay long lows. I like this company, but it's got to get over the 50-day moving average. So why not sell a little bit of short-term calls against it? All right, that's there. I did try a couple things, like at the end of the day, because I was basically, I basically said, did I put it in here? I basically said that I was kind of done for the day, like around like 11 o'clock. And you could see that's when I stopped with like the swing trading and took off a couple positions. Maybe it was a little bit later. Maybe it was around 12 o'clock. And this workhorse worked well. Broke out of the channel. So what again, the market webs, beautiful roadmap. I took this thing off at 1840 today, right at the top of value. So, or where was it? All right, so we talked about this one. Yeah, 1840. That's right. And that's it. you could see, like, if you want to see my positions in my trading account, there they are. I've got a small API trade on. I've got a little bit of apps on. I've got some JD from the other day. Lows, which is, I mentioned, partially hedged. A little bit of net on. I've had Palladium on for a long time, a little bit of Planet, and a little bit of SE, but none of those positions are a full position. This SE also, look where this thing. So again, if you wanted to trade this for a day trade, you got it today. 161 to 167, and there's your resistance. Stopped right at resistance. Right? So this thing is still, even though it's acting a bit better, right? It still has resistance to contend with. Now, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that it may be able to power through the resistance, but I don't have there's no trading signal yet in this one, right? And that's why I'm long stock, versus basically the 50-day moving average. All right. So I talked about the rails. Just other industrials kind of really caught my eye today. Right. I mentioned I would talk about retail. Nice bounce, but again, just not. I'm seeing that this real strength in the transports and the industrials. Minus of course Boeing. And some of those companies associated with Boeing. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Let's see, did I cover everything else? What else in terms of option activity? Let's see if I can give you just a flavor for the option. Oh, the semiconductors today. The semis actually did quite well today. That was another area. Look at Lam Research. Now again, Lam, was up $19, 5.5%. It is into resistance there at 370. Taiwan Semiconductor made the turn today, right? Or kind of, maybe the turn was yesterday. Texas Instruments still okay. That was a name that I found this weekend. Nvidia made a little bit of a turn as well. So gave you nice little scalping trade opportunities depending on what name you look at. However, like for this particular one, it's got to get this. It's got overhead resistance. Got to get through this 50-day moving average and 530.50. Right. Again, this value area for November is lining up perfectly with the 50-day moving average. So not yet, I would say, for this one. Maybe keep an eye on it. See what it can do. It's either going to tell you in the next couple of days, it's either going to get rejected and break down further, or it's going to be able to overcome this resistance and start to charge back up again. All right, guys. And by the way, and I'm seeing that in a lot of charts. So again, patience is key here, and to not anticipate. And by the way, the video is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. For me, the trading is not about anticipating. It's about having ideas, but you don't want to just throw on trades when you've got resistance right in front of you. And taking those ideas and instincts and then putting them into effect when you get the trading signal. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.